My hand was shaking so hard the champagne glass rattled against the table. Not from fear. From the effort of not throwing it at my sister's face. Under the white tablecloth, my phone buzzed against my knee. Once. Twice. A number I'd been waiting 3 weeks for. My mother leaned across the table, diamond earrings catching the candlelight, and smiled the smile she used to give me when I was 7, and she wanted me to apologize for something I hadn't done. "Don't make a scene, Rachel," she whispered. "You always make everything about money." I looked down at the bill the waiter had just set beside my plate. $4,112. And I smiled back. "You're right, Mom. I won't make a scene. Not yet. My name is Rachel Doyle. I'm 34 years old, and 11 years ago I started a commercial cleaning company out of the trunk of a 2009 Honda Civic with $600 and a bucket of rags. By the time this story starts, Doyle Facilities Group had 42 employees, contracts with 6 office parks, and just under $2.1 million in annual revenue. I wasn't rich, but I was for the first time in my life safe. My mortgage was paid off. My daughter's college fund had $38,000 in it. I'd built every dollar of it myself, one contract at a time, while my family called it Rachel's little cleaning thing. That family was my mother, Diane, 61, my older sister, Melissa, 37, who'd never held a job longer than 8 months but always had a new handbag, and my brother-in-law, Trent, 39, who called himself a wealth strategist and drove a leased Range Rover he referred to unironically as the office. The dinner in that cold open was my mother's 61st birthday. I was told it was just family, nothing fancy. I didn't know that by the end of the night, I'd be staring at a bill for a meal I never ordered, at a restaurant I'd never chosen, being told, in front of 6 family members, that I was the one paying for it. What I didn't know yet was that this dinner wasn't the betrayal. It was just the moment I finally noticed it. The restaurant was called Marchetti's, the kind of place with no prices on the menu and a maitre d', who called my mother Mrs. Doyle like they were old friends. I'd been told to dress nice. I hadn't been told there'd be a private room, or that it would already be full of empty champagne bottles by the time I arrived 20 minutes late from a work call. Melissa was wearing a dress I recognized, Chanel, the kind that costs more than my first car, and a new watch on her wrist that caught the light every time she lifted her glass. Trent had his phone out on the table, angled toward himself, recording a toast for his 40,000 Instagram followers about family, legacy, and abundance mindset. 6 lobster tails came out first. Then a second round when Trent decided the table needed the good ones, the 3-pounders. Then Wagyu, then 3 bottles of a wine I later learned retailed at $340 each. Nobody asked me if I wanted any of it. Nobody asked me anything, actually, until the bill came, and my mother slid it 3 inches toward my plate with one manicured finger. "You always say you want to do more for the family," she said. "Well, here's your chance." Melissa didn't even look up from her phone. "Don't be dramatic, Rach. It's like 1 week of your business, right? I paid it. All $4,112 of it on my business card in front of the waiter, in front of my daughter's empty chair, because I'd left her home with a sitter for what I thought was a quiet family dinner. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just quietly asked for an itemized receipt for my records. That receipt was the first piece of paper in a file that would end up 3 inches thick. 2 nights later at my kitchen table, I actually read that itemized receipt. Buried in the gratuity section was a note. Applied to house account, Doyle/Renwick, Pertive Renwick authorization, ref #prior balance. Trent's last name was Renwick. I called Marchetti's the next morning, pretending to be following up on a corporate expense discrepancy. The manager, not realizing who I was, mentioned that Mr. Renwick had a running house account going back 9 months, and that tonight's dinner had partially gone towards settling some of the balance. Some of it. Not all of it. I called Trent directly. Calm voice. Coffee in hand. "Hey, quick question. Is there an existing tab at Marchetti's under your name?" He laughed, that big confident laugh he used when he was about to lie. "Oh, that's just how the restaurant does loyalty billing for repeat clients, Rach. It's a house account structuring thing, helps with points accrual, corporate write-offs, all very standard for people who entertain at that level. I said, oh, that makes sense, and thanked him for explaining it. Did not make sense. Restaurants don't extend house accounts to unemployed wealth strategists unless somebody vouches for them financially. I asked my cousin Priya, who worked in the same building as Marchetti's, to casually ask the hostess, no digging, just conversation, how long the Renwick account had been open. 9 months. Same length of time my mother had been helping Melissa and Trent get back on their feet after a rough patch. A rough patch I'd been quietly wiring $500 a month to cover, thinking it was for groceries. It wasn't groceries. It was steak dinners with my name attached to the tab, because, as I discovered later, Trent had listed me as a guarantor contact on the account application, using an old cleaning company business card I'd given him 2 Christmases ago. The week after that, I stopped by my mother's house to drop off a birthday gift for my niece. The front door was cracked. I heard Melissa's voice before I saw her. She'll never actually check, Melissa was saying, laughing. She's too busy scrubbing toilets to read a bill line by line. Rachel thinks a receipt is a compliment. Trent from the other room. Exactly. Guilt is the best credit line in America. She thinks paying for stuff makes her family. My mother, softest of all 3 voices, the one that hurt the most. Well, somebody in this family has to be useful. Might as well be her. I stood on that porch for 11 seconds. Then I knocked, smiled, handed over the gift, and left. That night I called my accountant, Marcus, and asked him to pull every transaction linked to any account where my name, my old cleaning company's EIN, or my personal cell number appeared as a reference. Took him 4 days. The total? Not $4,112. Not the $500 monthly wires. Across 11 months between the restaurant account, 2 emergency wire transfers my mother had personally requested for Melissa's rent, and a car detailing subscription Trent had opened using my company's tax ID for a small business discount. The number came to $61,340. $61,340. Almost exactly what I paid myself in salary that year. I made a decision that night at my kitchen table, staring at Marcus's spreadsheet. They would never see this coming if they thought I was still the same Rachel who apologized for asking questions. So I became her. On purpose. I started slouching a little more at family dinners. I let my voice go soft and apologetic, the tone I'd spent 11 years training myself out of in business meetings. I left my reading glasses on top of my head instead of on my face and squinted at menus like I couldn't quite follow the numbers. I let Trent explain structuring and liquidity to me twice, nodding slowly, saying, "Oh, that's smart, I never think about that stuff." Internally, I was doing math faster than I'd ever done it in my life. I told my mother, unprompted, that business had been a little slow lately, might need to tighten up. That was a lie. Doyle Facilities Group had just signed its biggest contract yet. A $310,000 annual deal with a hospital system. But I needed them comfortable. Comfortable people get careless. Careless people leave evidence. I even let Melissa borrow my card for a hair appointment, and thanked her for asking first. She'd never asked before. She didn't know I'd started photographing every receipt and every text the moment I decided to look weak instead of small. I set the bait on a Tuesday. I told my mother, in what I made sure sounded like an offhand, half-embarrassed comment, that Doyle Facilities Group was about to receive a big settlement payout from an old contract dispute, around $90,000, and that I wasn't sure where to put it yet, maybe just leave it in checking for now. There was no settlement. It was a single sentence designed to see who would move first. Then I did 3 things. First, I asked Marcus to flag any new account activity using my EIN or my name within 7 days. Second, I put a small voice recorder, the kind used for legal depositions, fully legal to use in a one-party consent state, which mine was, in the console of my car, since every casual chat with Melissa happened there on school pickup days. Third, I left my phone on the kitchen counter, screen up, during a family visit, showing a fake text thread I'd built with my daughter's babysitter about moving some of that settlement into a joint account for safety. Then I waited. For days later, Marcus called. Someone had attempted to open a business line of credit using Doyle Facilities Group's tax ID. The application listed Trent Renwick as authorized co-signer, pending owner approval. My phone, sitting face up on that kitchen counter, had done exactly what I designed it to do. 2 days after that, in my car, Melissa's voice came through clean on the recorder. If she's really getting 90 grand, we take it before she invests it in something stupid. Mom already said she'd talk her into co-signing if we frame it as helping Trent's business. My mother. Talking her into it. Not being fooled by it, orchestrating it. I had the credit application. I had the recording. I had 11 months of receipts. Under the table that Tuesday night, my phone buzzed with Marcus's confirmation email, attaching the fraudulent application. I didn't look down. I just smiled at my mother and asked her to pass the bread. My mother's birthday dinner, the real one, the big one, 2 weeks after the Lobster night, was at her country club, 40 people, white tablecloths, a string quartet she'd hired to make it feel special. I RSVP'd yes. Trent stood up first mid-dinner, tapping his champagne glass, announcing to the table that he and Melissa had some exciting news about expanding the family's real estate footprint, and that they'd gotten some help from Rachel, who's finally learning what real wealth building looks like. My mother beamed. She's finally contributing something to this family. That was the line. That was the moment I set my fork down. I didn't raise my voice. I never do. I asked the waiter quietly to bring the folder from my bag up front, the one I'd left with the coat check, just in case. Then I stood and I spoke slowly, the way I speak to new employees on their first day, patient and clear. I'd love to talk about the family's real estate footprint, I said. Let's start with the $61,340 that moved through accounts with my name on them over the last 11 months, without my knowledge. The quartet stopped. 40 faces turned. Let's talk about the house account at Marchetti's, opened under Trent's name, guaranteed using my business card without my consent. Let's talk about the credit application filed 4 days ago under my company's tax ID, listing Trent as co-signer, pending my approval I never gave. And let's talk about a conversation in my car last Thursday, where Melissa said, and I'm quoting her exactly, Mom already said she'd talk her into co-signing. Silence. Real silence, the kind that has weight. Trent tried the jargon one more time, voice cracking. That's a mischaracterization of a very standard liquidity bridge. I set the folder on the table, open to the fraudulent credit application with his signature on it. Then calmly, I picked up the itemized Marchetti's receipt, the one from the night they told me I was paying, and tore it in half, then in half again, and set the pieces beside his plate. I already called the credit union this afternoon, I said. And the bank's fraud department has your application, Trent. They're expecting your call. 2 men in dark blazers, who I'd arranged to be waiting quietly by the club's entrance. Private investigators I'd hired through my attorney to formally serve documents related to the fraudulent application, alongside a bank compliance officer who'd asked to be present given the scale of the tax ID misuse, stepped forward as Trent stood to leave the table. My mother reached for my hand. Rachel, honey, we can talk about this as a family. I didn't pull away. I just looked at her. We are talking about it as a family, Mom. In front of the whole family. That's the difference between us. Trent was formally charged with financial identity fraud and unauthorized use of a business tax identification number 3 weeks later. His wealth strategy clients, 11 of them mostly retirees, filed a class complaint after discovering he'd used similar liquidity bridge language to move their retirement funds into accounts he controlled. He surrendered the Range Rover within the month. Melissa was named as a co-conspirator on the credit application but avoided formal charges through a plea agreement requiring full restitution, $61,340, paid over 4 years, garnished directly from any income she earns. Her country club membership, which had been under my mother's name, was quietly not renewed. My mother wasn't charged with anything. The law doesn't have a statute for what she did. But 3 of her oldest friends, the ones who'd been at that birthday dinner, stopped calling her. She told me once months later that everyone's being so cold since that whole thing. I didn't correct her. The one act of grace. My niece Melissa's daughter was 14 and had nothing to do with any of it. I'd already set up a small education fund for her years earlier without telling anyone. I quietly increased it, and I made sure, through my attorney, not through her parents, that it was protected in a trust neither Melissa nor Trent could ever touch, access, or borrow against. She got a card from Aunt Rachel on her next birthday. No lecture. No mention of any of it. Just cash for the dress she wanted and a note that said I was proud of her. It was raining the night my mother showed up at my door, 5 weeks later. No umbrella. Her coat was the wrong season for the weather, like she'd left in a hurry and hadn't planned past the driveway. Rachel, please. I have nowhere else. Melissa's place is too small, and I just need somewhere to stay for a few. I stood in the doorway, warm light behind me, my daughter doing homework at the kitchen table I could see over my shoulder. You called me useful once, I said. For contributing. I remember exactly how that felt. I didn't mean it like. I know what you meant. My voice stayed even, the way it had at that birthday dinner, the way it had every day since. I hope you find somewhere warm tonight. It won't be here. I closed the door. Gently. No slam. The kind of quiet click that means something is actually finally over. My husband, Dan, was leaning against the kitchen counter when I turned around, arms crossed, not smug, just steady. You good? Yeah, I said, and I meant it, maybe for the first time in 11 years. I really am. Here's what I learned the expensive way. Love that only shows up when you're paying isn't love. It's an invoice with better manners. Being generous with people who respect you is a gift. Being generous with people who exploit you is just funding your own disrespect. You don't have to be loud to draw a line. You just have to be done pretending you don't see it. So tell me, have you ever found out you were paying for something you didn't even know existed? Drop it in the comments, I read every one of them. If this story hit home, hit like, subscribe for more real stories like this one, and I'll see you in the next video.